And he doesn't know you're pregnant.
He doesn't know I'm pregnant.
You're 14
I'm sent
years
to
old.
Milwaukee when I'm pregnant. My mother kicks me out of the house.
They were going to put you in a detention home in Milwaukee.
Oh, that's a good story, sir. I was going to go to the detention home. My mother, because I'm like running the streets and doing everything, making her crazy, she said she couldn't handle it anymore. And she's taking me to send me to the detention home. And we get to the detention home. And we have to wait. And they say, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking through the doors and I see all these, quote, bad girls. And I have a moment with myself, like now I'm going to be in the bad girls' home. God, how did this happen to me? Please help me. And the woman comes back and says, I'm sorry, Mrs. Lee. That's what my mother said. Sorry, Mrs. Lee. We don't have any room. And your daughter's going to have to wait 2 weeks before we can take her in. And my mother said, you are getting your ass out of my house. Her exact words. And sent me to live with my father because the detention home was here. And that, again, became, that was literally a life-saving moment.
What would happen if they had room for you in the detention home? You don't know.
I don't know. I probably would not be sitting here today. Yeah. Because then you would have been in that environment, trying to overcome the stigma of, quote, the detention home. And so all the other things that happened to me, running for student council, being on the debate team, being an orator, getting in broadcasting by the time I was 16 years old, none of that would have happened had I gone to that detention.
Listen to this. You're in Nashville, you're living with your father now.
Yes.
This is, I believe, after the pregnancy.
After the pregnancy.
The child is stillborn.
Yes. Not stillborn, but died several days later.
I believe this quote from your father. Rather than see a daughter floating down the Cumberland River, I would rather see my daughter floating down the Cumberland River than bring disgrace on this house.
Right. So I go to my father's house. I know I'm pregnant at 14. When I walk into my father's house, my father lays down the rules of the house. He says, your curfew is going to be 10 o'clock. If you're not home by 10 o'clock, we'll put you out. You're going to go to school. You're a sophomore. You're going to bring home A's and B's because you are not a C student, and C's will not be allowed. You will not be allowed to date until you're 16 years old. You will not have sex, he says to me. You will not have sex, and you should know I would rather see a daughter of mine floating down the Cumberland River than to get pregnant and bring disgrace on this family. He says to me, as I know I'm pregnant. I don't know how far along I was at the time, so this was in September. Baby was born in January, so I was pretty far along. And he didn't know me, so I was covering myself up with coats and sweaters.